Top boxing news.
Ow! Okay, we'll start with this.
Dina Thorslund
posted this via her Instagram account. It's a very obvious call out for a unification match with Matchroom's own Ebony Bridges, newly crowned IBF champion. And you don't see a call out like this for a Yuli Hang Luna that comes with a nifty graphic, a call out like this for a Jamie Mitchell that comes with a nifty graphic. You'll notice that she's calling out Ebony Bridges by name, and somebody went as far as making a graphic about it.
It's not that Dina didn't call out the other champions.
Dina was in action this past weekend, and she made some mention of unifying titles with the other world champions that are out there, but nobody went as far as making a graphic about it.
Allow me to state the obvious. They probably want the Bridges fight.
They probably want an Ebony Bridges unification match more than they want those other unification matches, because those other unification matches, good matches that they might be against excellent boxers, excellent champions, while they might be those things, they won't be as high profile as sharing the squared circle with Ebony, because Ebony, in spite of not being this division's most accomplished champion or its seasoned fighter, what she is its most high-profile fighter.
She's not the most seasoned champion. She's a newly crowned champion.
And she's not the most seasoned fighter among champions. She's only got 9 pro fights. Yet you'll notice, Dina has special interest in facing Ebony Bridges, and it's obvious why. Ebony...
It's a more high-profile fight if it's Ebony she's fighting.
I'm not against it. I'm for unification matches whenever they can happen. Dina Thorslund went as far as tagging Ebony herself, stating she can't run forever, and Mark Tibbs, who has been training Ebony Bridges.
Ebby is the head that wears the crown.
You know, Ebony Bridges might not be everybody's cup of tea, but she's been very beneficial to the bantamweight division in more ways than people realize. She's brought more attention to that division than it was receiving.
More attention, more exposure.
The other champions and the challengers, they indirectly benefit from that attention, from that exposure, to ways they can call her out.
Calling somebody else out won't get this kind of coverage.
Won't, because somebody else ain't got the profile that Ebony's got. So in that way, she's been an asset to this weight class, though she herself has painted a bullseye on her back.
It's a trade-off. As your marquee value increases,
so does the number of people that want to fight you.
Like her countrywoman Shannon O'Connell by way of the IBF.
She wants a piece of Ebony, as does Denmark's own 2-division WBO champion Dina Thorslund, and she is one of 3 other champions at this weight.
Special attention's going to go into Ebony Bridges' next ring appearance.
Mounting pressure will build for Ebony Bridges to have these unification matches as she becomes a more sought-after fighter week by week and month by month.
I'm curious to see how Ebony handles this.
She's proven to be a tough cookie, and now we're going to see what kind of champion she is. North of the bantamweight division we just talked about, in the super bantamweight division, Ellie Scotney. Ellie posted this through social media, and it reads, I have my sights set on a world title by the end of the year, and am working non-stop to achieve my goal. Fight news is imminent, and so I need a strong team in my corner.
And that may yet happen. Matchroom signed a champion at 122 pounds.
Mayerling Rivas of Venezuela, this division's reigning WBA champion. It's conceivable that Ellie Scotney will lock horns with her in the near future. Not the immediate future, but
not the distant future either.
Ellie Scotney, who is being trained by none other than Shane McGuigan, who is also training Caroline Dubois, several other talented fighters. Ellie Scotney's a special fighter. She's got a high ceiling.
I think she just needs a few more fights before she's ready to challenge for a world title.
She's got the legs, got the speed, the ring savvy.
Ellie's one of 2 unbeaten up-and-comers Matchroom's promoting in the super bantamweight division.
They've got 3 prized stallions overall. 2 unbeaten up-and-comers in Ellie Scotney and Ramla Ali. Ramla, who is being trained by none other than veteran trainer Manny Robles. They've got Ellie, they've got Ramla, they've got Mayerling Rivas.
I wonder if they won't sign another champion.
You get the sense that when they signed Mayerling Rivas, which was a fairly recent signing, by the way, you get the sense that when they signed her with either Ellie Scotney or Ramla Ali in mind. Is it possible that they might sign another one of the super bantamweight champions, perhaps Mexico's own?
Maybe they signed WBC champion Jamie Mercado.
Or WBO champion of France, Sigaling Lefavre. It being that the IBF title is currently vacant and is soon to be contested in the Melissa Esquivel versus Shernika Johnson fight, maybe they sign the winner of that fight. Get themselves 2 champions in that super bantamweight show so that either Ali Scotney or Ramla Ali have a champion to fight, to shoot for.
Ali says fight news is dropping soon.
I look forward to seeing her in action.
Cotfoot woman.
I look forward to her continued development and her eventual ascent into championship status. In other news, per a tweet from Mike Coppinger, Top Ranks Bob Arum, who has been publicly supportive of Kinahan in the past, tells Mark Raimondi that he's cutting all ties with the MTK co-founder.
I'm a law-abiding American citizen, and I will adhere to those sanctions and not have any business relationship or any other relationship with him. Period. End of story. There's not even an argument there. The U.S. government doesn't make an allegation like this unless there is evidence to back it up. So case closed. You cannot take the U.S.'s position and treat it lightly. It's very, very serious for the United States to say what they've said.
And what have they said? What? 3 companies that Daniel Kinahan is allegedly associated with have been sanctioned, barred from doing business in the United States, when we all know that Mr. Kinahan's business affairs seem to be centered around Ireland and parts of Europe.
It's not saying he's got no business in the United States.
Saying I wouldn't overstate the role of all of this, especially in the sport of boxing, this being a boxing channel that covers boxing news. You'll notice that neither MTK Global or Probellum are mentioned as being a part of these sanctions.
U.S. government's not sanctioning them.
We've talked about that in my previous video, questioning the effectiveness of the investigation and the legitimacy of these accusations. How airtight is the case if the case is airtight?
It's a story only time can tell.
Bob Arum is publicly washing his hands of all of this. He doesn't want nothing to do with Daniel Kinahan,
Nada.
MTK, or Probellum, even though MTK and Probellum aren't being sanctioned by the U.S. government, so why'd he bring them up?
Freudian slip, maybe.
MTK as a company has denied any involvement from Daniel Kinahan in their current business affairs, even though he is a co-founder of the company. Probellum, that's supposed to be helmed by Richard Schaefer, yet most people feel that these 2 companies are in fact linked to Daniel Kinahan, as some of their fighters are linked to Daniel Kinahan. I mean, that's the way that all breaks down. That's why people are making that connection.
Bob don't want to get all wrapped up in this jackpot.
You're wondering if they got enough on Daniel and his buddies to where he can be brought to justice, assuming there's any reason to bring him to justice in the first place. You're asking yourself, what's the probability that this could lead to an arrest and extradition?
Must be decent odds at least if Bob's washing his hands of him publicly.
Well, Bob's a 90-year-old man. Do you think a 90-year-old man wants to be brought in for questioning by the U.S. government in relation to a crime syndicate?
Cocaine, murders.
On a regular basis, you don't want John Law sticking his nose in your business, much less if you've been in the sport of boxing as long as Bob Arum's been in the sport of boxing. A lot of people got a lot of skeletons in their closet, and it's no surprise to me that he's publicly disavowing any dealings with Daniel Kinahan, MTK, Probellum, or anything that even smells!
It was never established that Daniel has anything to do with Probellum.
Neither MTK or Probellum are being sanctioned by the U.S. government, yet Bob thought it prudent to just not deal with any of it.
We're a United States company. We're United States citizens. Our government has made this determination. We're gonna follow our government. Period. End of story. Which means you can't have business with the guy, and you've got to observe what the authorized representatives of the government have mandated. You're either on board or you're not on board. The lawyers are looking into it. Those are serious problems to have to be explored because MTK and Probellum appear to be entities he's involved with, and in which case, then it's a no-no to deal with them.
The undefeated Tyson Fury has distanced himself from Kinahan, but Arum doesn't expect Fury's relationship with Kinahan to impact his upcoming mandated WBC title defense against London's Dillian Whyte. From a licensing standpoint or in any other way, Fury and Whyte will headline an ESPN Plus pay-per-view show in the United States and a BT Sport box office pay-per-view event in the United Kingdom and Ireland April 23rd.
I don't expect any of this Kinahan stuff is going to get in the way of that fight.
That fight's next week, ain't it? Could take a while to finally pin old Danny to the wall.
At least more than a week.
Nobody had anything to do with making that fight other than Queensbury's Frank Warren and ourselves. It wasn't even a negotiated thing. It was a purse bid. This guy from Dubai had absolutely nothing to do with it. I never discussed it with him, neither did Frank. So again, I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah, plausible deniability might be of some service now in reference to previous affairs, though moving forward, doing any business with Daniel Kinahan and just being in the company of him will effectively make an individual a person of interest for the authorities.
You had any variety of familiar faces and familiar fighters taking pictures with this guy?
Anybody from Tyson Fury, Mick Conlon, Sonny Edwards, to the WBC president himself.
So a lot of people are wondering if this guy goes down, how's that affect boxing?
If you ask me, Daniel, for some reason, has kept a higher profile than perhaps someone of his reputation should have. Being linked with these very familiar faces, these familiar athletes, it would have better serviced Daniel Kinahan and what he's trying to do, whatever it is he's doing, to work in the shadows, work clandestinely in the background. You don't need to be in pictures with the WBC's president because that's somebody they can squeeze, get some questions in, get some answers.
Depending on what the nature of your relationship proves to have been.
Should someone start asking questions, looking for answers, someone like the U.S. government, I mean, I think it would have behooved Daniel, at minimum, to stay out of the headlines and stay out of the spotlight if you're going to do what it is you're trying to do, whatever it is you're doing.
He's a bit too cavalier with his presence, and that didn't help the situation.
People know that he is in some way, shape, or form involved in the world of boxing, and it really is just a question of to what extent, and is that still going on? It's for this reason that there are questions as to how all of this, might affect these athletes he's been linked to, and what effect it might have on the sport overall. Now, Bob thinks enough of the situation. He's washing his hands of it publicly.
That don't necessarily mean they got an airtight case on Daniel.
But what it does mean is that Bob ain't gonna stick around to find out. Why would he? He's fucking 90 years old. The authorities, the powers that be, they want to turn Daniel into a social pariah, create a difficult and awkward enough situation that people don't even want to touch this guy. They don't want to do business with him for fear that these authorities might squeeze them for intel, for information. The bounty that's out there.
$5 million.
Asking for intel. That could lead to a conviction. That's
They want to make it hard for him to do business any way they can.
putting him, his family, and his associates in a rather unflattering light. Even if at this time they don't have enough intel to extradite him, they will make it
They'll make him uncomfortable in the mean and between time.
Though I don't anticipate that all of this will have any effect on the upcoming heavyweight title fight between Tyson Fury, who has been linked to Daniel, and Dillian Whyte. When it comes to that fight, that Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte showdown, Dillian Whyte, he posted this via his own social media stating, "I'm ready. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone on the 23rd of April, Wembley Stadium. Let's go." Dillian Whyte has broken his radio silence. Being honest with you, I half expected one of these fighters to end up pulling out for whatever reason, some injury. I half expected something to go wrong, and something still can. There's still time.
But is Dillian going to stop promoting the fight now?
We know that that's become a bit of a hot topic. That became a conversation piece. The kickoff press conference for the fight that Dillian Whyte did not attend. Whether or not he had any obligation at all to help sell this fight when he has no stake in its success. He's getting guaranteed cash, regardless of what the fight does commercially, whether it breaks even or it doesn't.
He's not getting a pay-per-view upside.
Fury's fans were pretty upset about it. They have been the last couple of weeks, and we know that Frank's been blowing a gasket.
Yeah, Frank's pissed.
He's got a lot of money all tied up. He's got a lot of money riding on this fight, and he needs for the fight to do well. He needs the fight to, at minimum, break even, given what he paid to keep the rights for the goddamn fight. We've talked about that here on the channel. One thing we haven't talked about is the absence of British judges. I saw this.
The judges are Mexico's Juan Carlos Pelayo,
Canada's Robert Tapper, and Italy's Guido Cavalieri, with Mark Lyson being the fight's referee.
No, they don't want no British judges. No British judges.
Why? Because only British judges could be on the take? Because only British judges will accept brown paper bags with undisclosed dollar amounts in them to score the fight a certain way? I mean, this entire thing reads like a formality to me. Tyson Fury is the house fighter, after all. And this is happening in his house. It's a Queensbury promotion. Frank Warren is his UK-based promoter.
What, Tyson Fury and Frank Warren is scared the judges are going to be partial for Dillian.
Give me a fucking break. What, because only British judges?
Yeah, all the bad scorecards happen in the UK, all of them.
Never mind the scoring in Maestre versus Fox, which happened right here in the US of A in Minneapolis. Nothing wrong with those scorecards.
What are scorecards in Mayer versus Hamadouche?
100 to 90 also took place right here in the US of A. I mean, this entire thing about them not wanting any British judges scoring this upcoming Dillian Whyte fight, it wasn't something I talked about here on the channel because in all likelihood, this is a fight that won't go the distance. It's either Tyson Fury's going to knock out Dillian or Dillian's going to knock out Tyson Fury. One is viewed as more likely to take place than the other. One was more likely to happen.
That whole conversation, no British judges, just a waste of time.
The fight might not even go the distance, though even if it did, look at who's expressing concern over it. The house fighter? The house fighter is worried about partial scoring? I mean, give me a break.
We hadn't heard much of anything from Dillian about it.
Oh, Dillian went into radio silence, grafting, preparing for this fight, and now he has broken his silence. It appears that all systems are a go with a little over a week left before these two guys enter into that squared circle. The pay-per-view costs
$69.99.
$70 if you round up. I half expected the pay-per-view to be at a discounted price, it being that it's not going to happen during primetime hours for a boxing match here in America. It's going to happen evening time. You take a look at that undercard.
This has got to be a joke.
It is a joke, a bad one. I happen to think if this fight would have landed on the matchroom side of things, the undercard would have looked a lot better than Low versus Ball as the chief support. Low ball.
That's what got us here.
Low balling Dillian Whyte to the point. Fight ends up going to a purse bid, and you have to bid an exorbitant amount of money just to ensure that the fight's rights stay on your side of things. And here we are, though in truth, I am still interested in the fight. I still want to see what happens. I still want to see how it plays out.
I'm still buying it, even though the undercard sucks.
It really does, though the main event itself is good enough to purchase.